Have you ever known something before you could explain how you knew? My guest today, Dr. Yafi Yair, experienced exactly that, and it opened the door to a profound spiritual awakening. Together, we explore intuition, fear, channeling, and the question of whether we can learn to trust the wisdom within us. Stay tuned as Dr. Yafi offers a channeled message from Hathor and an activation to assist with heart opening. Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical sound of life once again this week. Today, I have multidimensional channel Dr. Yafi Yair with me. Welcome, Yafi.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for having me.
How did you start to channel? How did that open for you?
Yes, so in 2012, I was in the midst of completing my doctorate in clinical psychology. So I had a couple of years to graduation. And all of a sudden, I had this big spiritual awakening. Now, what does this mean? It actually started with an inner spark of interest. All of a sudden, anything that has to do with spirituality, with paranormal activity, I became super interested in. So I started consuming material, hearing about it, reading about it, anything that I could find. A few months later, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And I woke up with this intense knowing that she only had 1 month to live. And I woke up with that knowing 3 days in a row. I knew the date. So I dropped my studies and I flew to Israel. I live in Florida. My studies at this point were in Florida already, but my parents were in Israel. I dropped my studies and I flew to Israel and I took care of my mom the last 2 weeks of her life, then helped my dad, then flew back to finish my last semester in my doctorate. But this really, really pushed my spiritual interest to be very personal and very urgent. So it started with this theoretical interest in anything spiritual, and then it became really real and really personal. And I had this intense drive and desire to contact my mom, to know for a fact that there is a spiritual reality. Until then, it was more of a desire. I wanted to believe, I wanted that to be the case. But again, it became very personal and very urgent. And that really propelled me on my spiritual journey. I started developing my intuition even more. I started playing around with lucid dreams and out of body experiences. I started going to the Monroe Institute. And I really leaned into developing my intuition, which really opened me. All the gifts that I suppressed my whole life since I was little had the gateway to open and come through. And my left brain, my scientific, critical left brain, slowly, layer by layer, accepted the reality of our magical world, which is so much more than the third density world that we see with our physical senses. And slowly I opened to the practice of channeling. It really took me many, many years. So we're talking from 2012 until 2020, 8 years to begin being okay with channeling as a reality, as something that I can do and be comfortable with. So I knew I could channel before that because I tried and the people I was with were very happy with the results, but I wasn't. As a clinical psychologist, as a professional practitioner, I was not comfortable with treating channeling as a reality yet. So COVID shutdowns happened and I had all the time in the world and I enrolled in a channeling training. with Lisa Royal Holt, wonderful channeler, wonderful person. And it was a long form training. So it's not just a weekend, it's months and months and months of work and beautiful work. We did breath work and meditations and physical body work to build up the energy and different practices and channeling practices. And having all of that, plus the most important part of it for me, having a playful space to experiment, to explore, to discover, to learn trust on a deeper level. So I had this playful space of training, of learning, and there I could really discover deeper and deeper layers of myself and also discover my trust within the practice of channeling. And we didn't even mention all the sources that came through, which is another aspect of becoming more and more open, not only energetically, but even with my mind. Again, my critical left brain needed layer by layer by layer to be peeled to get more and more comfortable with more and more esoteric notions and concepts.
There's a lot in there to unpack, Yafi. First of all, I'm really curious as to whether you had any internal conflict between your psychology studies and your spiritual exploration.
Yes, I did have a conflict, and the conflict really showed itself in two ways. One was less of a conflict, but more of a journey. Like I said, from being more closed minded, being open minded as a person, but closed minded and as to what I thought was possible, right? And what could be real. So that was a conflict that was more of just a journey of opening up. But professionally, the conflict came externally and came very quickly. Pretty quickly, even during my internship, I realized that the clinical world was not spiritually open minded. And even simple things like I was trained in hypnosis or for clinical hypnosis. So I was trained to deal with trauma and chronic pain and and anxiety, etc., etc. But one of the things that really sparked my interest almost right away is past life regression. I discovered Brian Weiss. Again, my mind exploded. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. We can do this. And my supervisors and the clinical field was actually, no, you can't. And there was several no's there. So there was a no of, no, it's not real. We don't believe it's real. So if clients ask you about it, tell them it's not real. There was also lack of actual people that were experiencing this. So even regular mainstream hypnosis, I found a really hard time finding supervisors. Regular mainstream hypnosis, forget about spiritual hypnosis. And then when I graduated, when it was time to begin my own practice, I learned that I wasn't even allowed to practice spiritual services while holding a clinical psychologist license. So the American Psychological Association, the APA, said, no, 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 no. If you have our license, you're not allowed to do any crazy woo-woo stuff because then you're doing it under our licensure. So the conflict really came from the field and the closed-mindedness of other people. And the more I opened, the more it became obvious that I could not marry the two worlds. I could internally, I could in my practice, but not within the larger clinical field because it is just not ready for it at this point.
It's not ready for it yet.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the course that you took that you actually did body work as a way of building the body's ability to hold energy. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll mention that right now I teach channeling, specifically light language, and that aspect of both grounding and building up of physical vital energy is very, very important. And I mentioned two things, both the grounding and the building vital energy. Both are physiological in nature and both are crucial to any spiritual practice, very, very much so for channeling. So, in order to engage in these spiritual practices, again, it's even more so channeling. So, I've been doing psychic readings for 12 years now. Whoop, time goes by. No, 10 years. I've been doing psychic work professionally, but the channeling 5, 6 years. And that's even more energetically demanding. So, your body, you're running a lot of energy through your physical body when you're engaged in such practices. So, it's very, very important for your body to be strong, to be clear, and to be grounded. And strong and clear really talks about those basic things that we can talk about when we talk about physical health, nutrition, getting adequate sleep. But also, we're talking about a type of mental clarity that also affects the energetic body and the physiological body. So, we're talking about emotional clarity and thought clarity, which of course it's much easier said than done, but that's really the work of becoming a channel. You really do have to make sure that your system, which includes your physical body is such an important part of your system, of your vehicle, to be as clear, as grounded, as healthy, as strong as possible.
So it's not just a spiritual endeavor, it's really a way of life.
That's a perfect way of saying it. It really is a way of life. It's a whole journey and it takes a big commitment. People think that being joyful and cheerful and open hearted is so, so easy. And it's not. It's true that it's very rewarding. It's true that it feels much better to be in a joyful space than a sad or angry or whatever space. But it really is a lot of hard work, because in order to be truly joyful, and we're talking about joy, but we can also talk about being energetically clear, you really have to be able to hold all those spaces within yourself, the angry and the sad and the doubting and the questioning and all the different parts that we have, and the insecure and the victim and whatever stories we have. It's not about avoiding those. It's really about being able to hold all our different parts and hold them in a space of clarity, hold them in a space of compassion, and being able to do that and to continue to do that, because it's not, okay, I got there, I'm enlightened, that's it, I'm perfect. No, no, it's a journey and it's ongoing work and play. And it's very important to do both in order to be able to be clear and grounded and open, yes, and joyful and cheerful and loving and compassionate.
As you're speaking, Yafi, the understanding I received is that when we can do that with our own life and hold all of these parts and allow them and embrace them, it's like that opens up the psyche and allows even more possibilities to come through to us.
Absolutely. The more we are ready for whatever it is, the more our higher self and our universe and the universe and our team, our spirit team, is going to present whatever it is to us. But yes, the more we're able to hold where we are right now with the greatest amount of light, the more new light we can begin experiencing and bringing in.
And now, as a channel for Hathor, we're talking about the Egyptian goddess. Is that correct?
Yes, so I didn't know that. When Hathor first came to me, I was not familiar with the name. And I think it wasn't a coincidence. I think maybe if I was familiar with the name, there would be a part of my brain that would immediately go, no, thank you. goddess, Egypt, I don't know, too woo for me. But I had no idea who she slash them were when they first came to me. And it was introduced to me as the divine feminine, a flow, an essence of the divine feminine. And over time, me and my group asked more questions, and the connection to Sirius came through, the star system Sirius, and how, and later on, further later, even the connection to Atlantis. So there are again many, many layers to who and what Hathor or the Hathors are. And they're both true. You can talk about it as an individual because they do have the ability to individuate, both in consciousness and even physically. So, indeed, they were physical beings during the time of ancient Egypt, but also more abstract, right? The flow of the divine feminine. It's so abstract, it's so general. So, all of it is accurate depending on what layer of their identity you focus on at any given moment. So it is the Hathors or Hathor, yes, an Egyptian goddess, but so much more. Also, mainly known as a Sirius collective. And recently they explained to me that since they've ascended from their physical existence in the Sirius star system. And that if I'm saying sense because sometimes for our human mind is easiest to understand it in linear term, although from their perspective, time is much more fluid than this. So, in linear terms, once they've ascended from their physical existence in the Sirius star system, that's where their spiritual collective started operating in different parts in the cosmos, both spreading life and guiding life on different planetary systems, Earth included. So, they have guided us and been a part of our existence even before we were who we are as humans.
And they are helping, I'm going to assume, with this rather chaotic ascension that we're in the midst of.
Yes, it seems chaotic to us. In the bigger scheme of things are actually as they should. The shaking has to happen before new organization of a higher pattern comes into order, comes into play. And also something that they have prepared us, they have been talking about for years now, that anything that's broken must come up to the surface. Nothing can stay hidden anymore. And as a result, we are seeing a lot of brokenness and a lot of corruption coming up to the surface. But it's not that those systems were not broken or corrupt before. It is just that now it is all happening in a way that we cannot avoid anymore. We have to know everything so we can face everything and we can choose the direction in which we're moving ahead. And we have chosen. So that is why it is not as chaotic as it may seem to the human eyes and the human mind. It is just the last point of tension as we are being squeezed, as we are squeezing ourselves into the eye of the needle to come through the other side, which is the next octave of vibration, which is the shift that people talk about, this evolution that people are talking about. We are literally going up an octave, the whole earth and humanity with it. So that is what we're seeing right now, the mess and the chaos before the organization into a higher state of being.
I love that you said that the earth is also in its ascension. It's not just humanity.
Exactly. We are just a part of this beautiful living earth. We are like the cells on her body. So we are all upgrading together.
Edgar Casey said something similar about how these beings came to Earth and had physical lives here and how they were seen as gods and goddesses because of their advanced wisdom and ability. So it's really fascinating that your channeling also
I
correlates.
love Edgar Casey. Yes. Another fascinating facet about this that a couple of years ago they have announced through me as I was channeling that they are on the earth in the physical once again. So for the past few years, they have actually returned in the physical, and that is a part of their work of bridging the gap, the frequency gap, the mental paradigm gap, all of those, the physiological differences, which is a part of the energetic, the frequency. So a part of their bridging the gap is them being here in the physical, once again, working towards physical contact, which to me is super exciting. I absolutely cannot wait for the day that I actually come face to face with those beautiful, loving beings that have started manifesting in the physical, even for me, as a form of golden orbs. As of now, they stay pretty far. I'm not sure if it's just for my protection or also for their protection. I think our skies are being monitored. So I think it's safer for them to manifest interdimensionally or as plasma rather than physical uh, beings or objects.
Mhm.
But that is something that I think rather that was directly told to me. Some of it was told to me. I'm adding a lot of speculations.
I guess time will tell for sure. And really, the Hathor's message is embracing the divine feminine, would you say?
Yes, their main message, if we remove even the words divine feminine and really talk about settling in our heart center, learning to live from the heart center, to experience things from the heart center, to connect to each other from the heart center. And we're talking about the heart center, we're making a differentiation here that until recently, we were very, very focused on the mind, mental energy, mental reasoning, mental understanding, cognitive understanding, which is wonderful and is important to the human psyche and concept. But now it's time to bring the heart into the picture and find a different kind of balance. And we can call that the integration of the right brain, or we can call that the divine feminine. But to make it really, really, really practical, it's really going into the body, into our emotions, and connecting to our heart center as a way of living.
And that would also encourage our empathy, compassion, and connection with each other while we're here in a body, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's all connected. The more we're able to go inward and hold a true space of compassion to ourselves, the more we're able to connect to others in the most pure and open and true heart to heart way. So inner work here, it's not a coincidence, and I'm a psychologist, right? And I'm selected for this kind of work. So inner work here is really fundamental to our ability to connect with each other in a more elevated, direct way. And that even includes telepathy, right? We're becoming more and more telepathic and more connected in different ways. And it's all a part of it.
Any mention of how long this shift will take to really solidify?
Yes, yes. They actually like giving dates and times. And the year 2027 has been brought up as significant. Even the year we are in now, 2026, a lot of things are going to come into place. 2027 is almost like a quantum year. And I'll go back to it in a second. And then 2030, they say that by 2030, the world will be quite different than we're used to it. That open contact will be just open, will be a thing, completely open. And by then, also certain technologies are going to be integrated into our societies. The main ones are free energy and clean water. These two are just going to completely revolutionize our civilization and our society as we know it. And those are coming and are coming not only in our lifetime, in the next few years. That is what they say. And in terms of the 2027 being almost like a quantum year, So they talked about different waves of energy, of consciousness that have been elevating us. In 2012 was one. The next one was 2020, then 2024, then 2026. Now, notice we're going half. So first it was 8 years, then 4 years, then 2 years, which leads us to today, 2026. And the next is 1 year. And that 1 year is 2027. So that's when all those ways of consciousness are going to converge. And I believe, and that is my Yafi speculation, is that that is really when we're going to fully go on to the next octave, whatever that means, however that looks for us. I'm definitely excited and looking forward to see what that looks like.
So, some big changes ahead.
Yes, big changes have already been happening as we can see around us. And we cannot see everything because when you're in the midst of change, you can't really see everything that's happening. So, what we're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg.
I think that one of the things that really either not keeps us stuck, because I don't think we're stuck, things are definitely moving, but maybe keep us anchored into the past are those, limiting beliefs or ideas of how we think things should be. How would you recommend people start to be able to open their mind a little bit so that it's easier for them to make the changes that are going to have to manifest, really?
I think I have a clearer answer and vision of that than ever before. I think the best thing that people can do is to start working with their own fear and reduce their own fear. Because even the fear of believing in something that's woo woo, right? That's a fear. So, really start working with people's inner fears and start letting go of those fears and replacing those with openness and curiosity. I think would be absolutely fundamental. And I think other things will flow and come into place, but just addressing that fear because right now it's such a strong barrier for so many people.
I'd say it's a fear and a judgment.
But judgment also comes out of fear.
Yeah, absolutely. If they could switch even one of those just a little bit, it could start to transform everything.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering, Yafi, if the Hathors might be open to sharing a message with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get into the channel state. And would you like to ask them a question?
I don't have a question in mind at the moment, so perhaps they can just start with a message and we'll see what happens.
Okay, sounds good. Greetings and blessings to you. It is our pleasure to be here in this space with you. We will open with a message about open heart and what it really means to have an open heart. As you mentioned in the conversation before, the tendency of humans until very recently was to focus their energy in their mind. Even when the spiritual awakening had begun in recent decades on your planet, people were still focusing on their third eye in order to awaken their own spirituality. So it was a gateway of entering the spiritual world, entering spiritual dimensions through the mind. So awakening their inner vision was still relating to the mind. Now, many spiritual seekers have discovered that after several years of awakening their inner vision, awakening their intuition in this way of the inner vision was taken away from them. All of a sudden, They couldn't visualize things as easily, or more significantly, could not receive visions as answers and messages. These spiritual seekers may have discovered that over time, over the months, over the years, other subtle senses began awakening within them. Senses that are more subtle than spiritual vision, such as the ability to feel energy viscerally, such as the ability to recognize thought forms and downloads from spirit or from their higher self, and other subtle senses, such as smelling, hearing, etc. So, in order for those other subtle senses to be awakened, including the major gateway portal of the heart center, which includes knowing and sensing, become sharper and sharper as the visions will slowly allow to come back in a more integrated form, now including the knowing and the sensing. So this is a part of the journey of spiritual evolution that humanity is currently experiencing. And that is a part of what it means to have an open heart, to feel and know through more subtle pathways of information, becoming in essence a much better listener to your own body, to your own heart, and even to your own mind. Now that it is not leading the way, you can interact with it in more holistic, inclusive, more aware ways.
Beautiful, beautiful. Do you have any recommendations for listeners on how they can open their hearts more?
Yes, you must listen to your heart. You must realize that the outmost wisdom lies within you. You just need to learn how to listen, how to feel it. And this can be scary because we are telling you not to listen to authority figures, to spiritual teachers as the ultimate truth speakers, but to learn to always go to inner discernment as the ultimate final word. That is how you learn to trust yourself. That is how to learn. You learn to listen to your own heart, to your own spiritual essence that is speaking to you and guiding you at any given moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. My gratitude to you. Thank you.
It is our pleasure and our joy to share this space with you and your listeners.
And we have Dr. Yafi back. How much do you retain, Yafi?
Well, it's really tricky. So right now, it's going away actually really, really fast. And I remember, for example, there were either 2 questions or 2 messages. And I feel like I know what they were about, but I can't, my mind is not grasping. It's like waking up and not remembering a dream but it's like very, very close. It's at the tip of my tongue. So as soon as you'll tell me something about it, I'm like, oh, of course, it will come back to me. But right now, trying to grasp it, it's not really there.
So good for you then to record whenever you channel. Yeah.
And all my transmissions are recorded, and that's actually what the books are. So I have two books out, and they're all channeled materials from transmissions that I've done for mostly for my groups, some individuals, but mostly for my groups. And yes, going back and listening is always interesting because even if I feel like I remember everything, I discover things that I really had no memory of saying. So it's very interesting.
And a good practice for all of us as we sit in our hearts more and the wisdom comes that we either journal that wisdom immediately or record it as it happens.
Yes, even now you said that, I remembered them talking about the heart and what it means to live from the heart. So I remember now.
Yeah, it's beautiful and very much like a dream. If you can just like remember one little snippet, right? Then it's like you have the morphogenic field of the dream active in your consciousness. So wonderful. I know we did talk about doing some light language. So I wonder if it's possible maybe for a short channel just to help people's heart open.
Sure. So I will mention that the spoken part of the light language is usually Isis, while Hathor is usually the one making more tones and sounds that they call field tuning, but they often work together. So I can just do a quick little transmission and we can request specifically to help people anchor in their heart.
Beautiful.
Inaratia narakatorostuhamaniakira natarastohom. Horeania rastia nikatarohom. Huhorayena hareaniani. Huromania kerastohom. Homariani harana ha 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 ha. Take a deep breath. Orayania katurustu homania katirana anyatikat arania.
I feel the flow in the heart and actually up the channel into the throat as well. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Yafi, you mentioned your books. You have two books.
Conversations with the Earth really captures me channeling many, many different sources, different Earth elements, and different galactic councils, and the hybrid children, and really anything that me and my group were curious about. And we just asked a lot of questions about them, about us as humans right now, and the shift that we're going through. And my second book, Conversations with Hathor, really documents my whole journey with Hathor. And she is one of the first essences that came through to me before I had any idea who or what they were. So a lot of the questions at the beginning are about channeling and about finding a trust and about how do you know when it's a real source versus it's just your imagination and all these questions that many people have. And then it really went into their own nature as Hathors, their interactions with humanity over the decades, over the millennia, and our true nature as humans, and the shift that is happening right now.
Well, I'm going to say that your spiritual path won out over clinical psychology.
Absolutely.
Now, Yafi, where can we send people who want to know more?
The easiest way to find me and get in touch is my website, which is yafichanneling.com. Yafi, my first name, Yafi, channeling.com. And through there, you can find links to the books, to my YouTube, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you can find me, Yafi Channeling. I'm also on Spotify. I actually have my light language on Spotify. And my artist name, not surprising, is Yafi Channeling.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Sound of Life. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com, pick up your copy of Learning to Listen, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now.